Hi, my name's Bea and I'm here for week 3 of the singing sessions, breath and posture. Breath, you do it all the time, you do it to live, but when we're singing, we breathe from different places. And this session is to look at what sort of breathing is available to us, why we need it, and how to use it. The other segment of this exercise, which I think goes hand in hand, is posture. If you have poor posture, you have less control over the muscles that support your breathing. If your breathing isn't supported, you won't make a supported sound. So you definitely won't be able to belt or anything like that. For this session, you could benefit from using a mat, and we'll be doing some work on the floor. If you have a yoga mat or a roll mat or even a carpet, it's preferable to lie on mats so that your back doesn't get cold, because cold muscles are easily injured. You're obviously going to need your water. If you haven't thought about water in a while, have a look at how much water you need to survive, how much water an active person should take in. So when I was younger, the number was always a litre of water a day. So that's 250 milliliter cups of water a day. But if you're an active person and you're a person who's sweating a lot, you're going to need more water because your body is getting through that water with its functions. So water is essential. Shoes, I prefer to go without shoes, but be conscious of your floor. If you're on a slippery flooring surface, either wear trainers or don't wear socks. Anything you can do to reduce slipping, because slipping is how we cause injuries, etc., etc. So where we're going to start today is a warm-up, and we're going to do a nice quick warm-up today because I want to get into some of the nitty-gritty of breathing. So I'm going to put some music on. We're going to have a little bit of a boogie. Okay, so this is starting nice and slow, so we're going to start with a walk on the spot. Okay, and as the music drops, we're going to start moving faster, start moving harder. Okay, I want you to start lifting your knees. Excuse the sound of the drums behind me. Faster, sprint for me. Okay, so we're going to jump out. Squat. Down, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out, in. This is great because it gets all those corners going. So we're going to start lifting our knees. Throw it back, pull it in. Okay, now we're going to swap legs. Ready? Come on. Okay. Ready? We're going to rock, spin our arms back. Keeping our feet moving to keep that root up. Ready? Back to that nice walk. And we're going to bring it forward again. Okay. And we're going to drop our back knee. We're going to jump swap. We're going to jump swap. Get it? Keeping our chest up. Ooh, all right, let's go. Okay, this time we're going to lift our knees up. So we're going to go. So you can get your knees better. So we're gonna 2, 3, 4, 5, and the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 3 and 1. We're gonna go to butt kicks. This is your last bit, so push, push, push. Oh. Okay, now we're gonna bring it down a little bit. Take side steps. Nice job, guys. So we're nice and warm now. We're feeling our breath into our body. Check out where you are today. Where's your breath today? Could be already quite deep and low, or like me right now, could be quite high. So these exercises, they're not about abusing yourself. So we know that a lower breath, filling our lungs more, makes us more supportive. But if today you're really tired, or you're stressed, or you're tense, be aware of what's not right, but don't beat yourself up about it. This is about slowly warming into things. If you're not ready to jump in, you don't have to. We're all here to support each other and to find new elements of our fitness and our vocal ability. So before we get cool, we need to do some stretching. So we're going to start with our shoulder rolls. So feet nice and hip width apart, make sure our hips are nicely aligned, all of that fun jazz. Pulling through so that our shoulders aren't up here if we don't want them to be. So we're going to lift, we're going to drop them back, and rolling forwards, and lift, and drop them back, forwards. Okay, I'm going to go the other way. Good job, get those shoulders nice and relaxed. Okay, now we're going to bring our arm up. We're going to, so keeping our hips square to the floor, just going to open up. We're going to give our hips a bit, our ribs a bit of a tap, a little bit of a rub, little bit, oi, what are you doing? Wake up. Breathe into this stretch. Let your weight, let gravity help you with this. But we're not letting ourselves flop forwards or backwards. We're nice and straight. Now we're going to come back up. We're going to stretch the ceiling, tippy toes, try and touch the sky, and drop. And then we're going to do what we just did on the other side. So we're going to lift it way up. And we're going to slow. So it's really important when we're doing focused breath exercises that all of the muscles, our intercostal muscles, are all working together. They're all supporting each other. You don't have anything taking lots of responsibility for the sound of your voice. Okay, back up to your tippy toes again. This time we're going to drop to our feet, then we're going to bend our knees and we're going to flop. I'm going to give ourselves a bit of a shake. Now, we're going to do something that we didn't try last week in our warm-up session. What we're going to do is a plank. So, you've probably seen them in exercise videos, etc. So, planks are difficult because they engage your whole body. That's why they're so tiring. And what I want to use it for today is to get you to have a feeling of where your muscles in your stomach are and what they're doing while we're down there. So, what my favourite way to get into plank is to fall down, put my hands on the floor, go into downward dog for a little bit. While we're here, we can give our feet a quick pedal. And then we're going to slowly come into our plank position. Our bum's not stuck in the air. So check in with your breath. I find this quite hard, so I'm holding my chest, which I shouldn't be doing. So we're breathing in. Try and relax that belly, let it work, don't let it be tense. Okay? Rock back to downward dog. Okay. We're rocking back towards again. We're going to put our knees down and sink to the floor. Or you might want to mat. We're going to make sure our hands are under our shoulders, our elbows back. And we're just going to lift in from our chest. We're going to pull up into a position. Okay? This one is amazing for opening up all of those tummy muscles that we need today. Now we're going to come into cat cow. So you're like a cat, you're arching your back like a hissing cat. And cow. So we're letting our whole spine make one nice curve. So our head is going up and forwards when we're in cow. When we come to neutral, it's neutral. When we come into cat, it's down. Okay, so we're going to hold here for a second. Take some nice deep breaths. Okay, now I'm going to go back to cow. Feel your back and your shoulders opening up. Again to cat. So that nice rounding of your shoulders, nice rounding of your spine. We're going to come back to neutral and we're going to but slowly float backwards. Slowly float backwards. And we're going to relax into child's pose. So we're going to have a nice elongated spine. Put your head on the floor if you want. But the important thing to think about is point your coccyx to the floor. Try and point your tailbone down. You want a nice even engagement across our spine. Okay. So from here, we're going to step back into our feet. Okay, we're going to make sure we're ragdolly. Nod your head. Yeah, nod your head, yes, shake your head, no. Bounce your knees a little bit, let your head flop about. Swing your arms from side to side, opening up all of these side muscles. And then very slowly, we're going to roll back up one vertebrae at a time. Important that you do this slowly so that you can concentrate on where you are. But also, if you stand up too quickly, you might pass out. So nice, slowly, our shoulders roll back. The last thing to come up is our head. Now, where we found ourselves here should be good posture. So we're going to double check that. We're going to have our feet parallel. So they're not pointing in, they're not pointing out. Parallel. Some people naturally have an outward turnout. Some people also who've done ballet for a long time, because they've done a lot of practice, will stand in turnout. But that's not what we want today. We want our feet parallel. We don't want to be leaning backwards or forwards. We want our balance to be nicely, evenly distributed. So what we're going to do is we're going to lean forward. Feel where your balance is. Don't bend in the middle, just lean forward. You feel your toes crunching up. Yeah? Okay, now I want you to lean backwards. And at some point your arms will kick in because your body knows that it's not balanced safely, so it starts to try and protect itself. We also don't want to be leaning. All of this is crushed up, no space for breath. Same the other way. So our tailbone. Your tailbone is up here, about here. And when I say it's back, that's what I mean. So you end up with this kind of duck shape. When it's forwards, for me that causes a lot of tension.
But also, it doesn't give you a great amount of balance. All of your weight is quite a way back. So what we want is a nice even middle position, so our arms not sticking out and our hips aren't sticking forward. Nice even position. Our knees are not locked. At no point do we have our knees locked backwards or forwards. They need to be nice and bendy, easy to move. We're engaging our stomach muscles, so we're going to zip up a tight pair of jeans. Imagine you're zipping up a tight pair of jeans. Okay, so we're engaged, but we're not stopping ourselves from breathing. So your body has a natural amount of engagement, otherwise you wouldn't be able to stand. We don't want engagement to become tension, because that's how we injure ourselves and damage our voices. I'm going to take a quick sip of water now. So, before we move on, I have quite a bit of tension in my chest today and in my neck. So I'm just going to go back and do some of those exercises we went through last week. So I'm clasping my hands behind my back. And I'm trying not to let my back arch, but I'm just stretching out that chest. Make sure it's working for me, not against me. Right. And we're going to bring our head down towards our shoulder, nice and gently. It's all floating. We're going to lift our hand and gently rest it. So not bringing our shoulders up. It's really tempting to bring our shoulders up here, but we're just letting our head sink. And we're saying hello to someone behind us. Hello. With our spare hand. So engage it to make sure our shoulder's working on going down. You're trying to reach a pen off the table without anyone seeing you. Then we're going to let this hand drop. We're going to let our head float back up. And the other way. Lift our hand to our head, let it drop. Let it sink. Again, checking your core is engaged. We don't want any floppy bodies here. Friend down here. Oh yeah, that's where the tension is. Just across the neck there. Okay. We'll let our hand float away. Very slowly, we're going to let our head float back up. That feels so nice when you do it. Now we're going to let our chin flop forwards. Both hands, again, we're not pulling, we're just resting. And we're letting that go. Slowly letting our head lift back up. There we go, that's much better. So give yourself a shake, give yourself a bit of a jiggle. Okay, so where we're starting today, now we've done our warm-up, is with our breath. So there are some basic things about biology that are useful to know at this point. We have a musculature membrane at just this point, just between where your squishy ribs are. We have a muscular membrane called the diaphragm. And the diaphragm is basically in charge of our breathing. So it pulls down and our lungs fill up like water balloons, and it goes up and it pushes that air back out. But also, you have floating ribs. So your whole rib cage opens when you breathe. So all 360, you can expand your breath. So, okay, did you see my back go there? I think it's probably easier to see in person, but what I'm doing there is I'm letting this just expand. So our hinges for our ribs are kind of clear, and it's all muscle, it's all tendons. So we're opening our ribs outwards, and as we do that, it's expanding our back, okay? So what I want you to do is thinking about that, thinking about those water balloons filling up. I want you to close your eyes and imagine that, like you're filling a water bottle, a water balloon from a tap. The water goes into the bottom first, it fills out the lungs, and then it fills up the balloon, and then the balloon expands, right? So we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to do a deep breath out. We're going to go And then close our eyes and imagine the water coming in and it's filling the bottom of the balloon. And it's expanding all around. And then we're going to breathe out on a nice gentle, okay? So see how long you can go. Okay, breathe normally, don't want to get dizzy. We don't normally breathe that deeply. We don't normally have a cause to breathe that deeply. And sometimes it's actually counterintuitively makes it harder to do things like singing because you've got an internal pressure. This whole bit of body is basically pressurized to stop you from leaking bodily fluids into your mouth, etc. We have something called vocal folds. So it's like little gates. Imagine little gates in your throat. You have the true vocal folds and you have the false vocal folds. And the false ones always want to get involved in everything. So all of that bit, its first cause is to stop you from choking, basically, stop you ingesting food or liquid down the wrong hole, down the wrong pipeline. So you've got your breathing, your bronchial, and your all my brain's stopped working, sorry. So you've got one that goes into your chest, and you've got one that follows that same tube but goes further down into your stomach. And on top you've got a little gate. It's called the epiglottis. The epiglottal sphincter, which is a delightful word, but it closes, it tightens to prevent food getting in. What it also does, however, is if you're tense, you're liable to have really tight closure on those false vocal folds and those true vocal folds. That's really helpful if, say, you're a bodybuilder and you're lifting 120 kilograms, because that internal pressure stops you from being all squishy. Humans are quite squishy, but that pressure pushes out, holds the muscles, holds the skeletal structure against that weight. So that's great. And often if people think of old people getting up from chairs and that sort of noise. That's the noise that happens when your true and false vocal folds are trying to form a seal to prevent that pressure being lost. But our true vocal folds are what makes the sound. So they're the things that touch together or smack together, depending on how you're using them, to make different varieties of sound waves, vibrations. Your false vocal folds are there for the other two purposes. But if they feel any effort in the area, they're going to get involved. And that's what leads to something called constriction, which is basically everything tightening up, and kind of not being able to. So if you tighten your fists, tighten your shoulders, tighten your chest, and don't do it too long because it can hurt your voice. Okay, that constriction can be really damaging, and our posture, our nice relaxed shoulders, our nice open chest can help us avoid that. So that's why this is really important. Now, our true vocal folds come together and release with different efforts. So if you are shouting, what we call thickening of the vocal folds. So they go from being like that normally to like that. So that's not very loud, that is. And different amounts of air can come through. And there's also different positions in your throat. I won't go into too much detail, but if you imagine the sound of air going over a bottle, so, woo, woo, woo. So that's not a lot of contact. There's a lot of air coming out. And then you've got the oi, oi, that, the big glottal noise. So that's what we call it when it comes together and
the sound comes after, no, the sound comes before the breath. So when we're, you can hear the breath coming, people have a habit of going, and, when they mean and, because that's all of the breath coming out first and then the sound. Whereas I is the sound and then the breath. Why is it important for you to know that? Because it's different things to practice. It's what we call vocal onset, and it's how we use our breath, okay? And when we're training our body to breathe properly, it's important we know where it's going to go and how it's going to be used, because it teaches us what sort of breath we need to take. Because the one we did earlier, the really, really deep breath where we filled everything out like a massive water balloon about to explode, that's not actually that useful for a phrase of music, because you've got all of that air fighting to get back out and only your little vocal folds to stop it. So it actually makes it harder. So today we're going to be doing a lot of exercises that help us focus on how much breath we're using. First off, I want you to give me a little bit of a shake off, because we have been standing still for a little bit. If you have a jumper or a cardigan or something like that, I'd advise you put it on now. We're going to go on the floor. If you were with me last week, you will have, hopefully, seen the panting exercise. So we're panting like a dog. The reason we're doing it on our backs is because we don't have to think so much, or we don't have to combat the muscles that are there to help us stand up. We can be completely relaxed on the floor. So our stomach muscles get out of the way, basically, while we're training. Eventually, you should be able to do all of these things with regular practice. You should be able to do all of these things standing up. We're at a starting point, so we'll build to it. What we're going to do, we're going to lie down, we're going to get comfy on our backs, we're going to put our hands on our diaphragm. We've got our feet just wide and hip width apart. They're kind of taking their own weight. We want that little curve in the bottom of our spine not to be there. So we naturally have a curve. Some people more than others. And we want that to be on the floor. So our spine is really nicely aligned and ready for us to go. We're going to put our hands on our diaphragm. We're going to make sure that our hips are in the right place, that we're comfy. And we're going to breathe through our nose first. So we're going to take a nice breath in through our nose. And then we're going to pant like a dog. Okay, so I want you to feel your belly, feel your diaphragm, and feel what's working, okay? And if you can't feel it, then think down. Think like it's a trampoline, okay? So we want our trampoline to dip down and bounce back up, okay? So let's go back to that huff. Sticking our tongue out is useful because it's one of those muscles that, again, wants to be involved in everything. It wants to help with everything. So by sticking our tongues out, it stops our tongues causing any problems and getting in the way. So have you found that nice movement of your belly? If you haven't, we can try a ha 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 ha. So the more air comes out, the more your diaphragm will bounce. Okay. You don't want to be doing that too often though, because I would call it an aspirated onset. So that's when the air comes before the noise. If we're not doing that properly, we can injure ourselves. So we're going to be really careful about having a nice open sound. I'm really going to go to that ha, 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 ha.
Feel what's moving. Feel what's activated. Ha, 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 ha. Okay? So now we're going to go from a ha to a. So I didn't. That wasn't a very good example. So we're going to try and take the noise away. So do a forced breath like that with as little noise as possible. So we're kind of huffing. This should be engaging all of this bit. And if you do it for long enough, it feels like you've had a workout. So let's keep going for a couple of minutes, couple of seconds. Try and think nice and low. Think into your hips. Okay, so are you all satisfied that you found where your lungs are, where your diaphragm is, and how those muscles move out of the way? So all of those muscles that help us stand up, we're going to shift out of the way so that our lungs can expand. This time, we're going to take a breath in through our nose like we did before. And we're going to let as little air out as we can. We're still breathing out. We're letting out as little air as we can. So try and have no noise at all. So nice breath in. So letting our stomach be completely relaxed. Don't worry if it makes you look bloated or anything. Everyone does. So we're going to take a nice breath in through our nose. And we're just going to let it go. I want you to notice at what point each muscle engages. Okay, so deep breath back in. I'm going to go again. Just feel. Don't judge what you're doing. Just feel what's engaging and what isn't. What muscle groups are working here. Okay, now this time, what I want you to think about breathing in is that water balloon. So you're at the bottom of your lungs is still the bottom of the water balloon. You're filling it from a tap. And we're going to let it expand in all directions. So let's take that nice breath in, feeling it expand in all directions. Nice and gently. This time, before we do our water balloon breath, what I want you to do is make a sound and push out all of the air that's left inside. Every single bit of air. I want it gone. Okay? So and then we're gonna let it, so don't hold for too long. Once you've got to the end of that breath, once you feel like you've run out of breath entirely, breathe in again like water balloon. So I'm just gonna so this is called letting the breath drop in. It stops us thinking about it as something that is pressured,
falling in, it's flowing in like that water out of the tap. Okay, so let's try that again. And then we fall in. Really nice, guys. Just feel that nice expansion all over. So now we're going to try and add some time to it, add some control to our breath work. So we're going to breathe in for 4. We're going to hold for 4. Then we're going to breathe out for 8. Now, this is a place where you get to practice how much breath you need to take in to breathe out a count of 8. So my biggest problem was that I had been taught in a choir when I was younger, you have to take a big breath before a big note. But as we worked out earlier, we talk about pressure, and the pressure in your body is actually more challenging because you've got all of this air forcing its way out that you don't need to create your sound waves. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a really light breath. So it's still going to go deep into our body, but we're not going to take loads of air. We don't need loads of air. So we're just going to let it fall in. And we're going to hold. And then out. So, did you get to 8? Did it feel too hard? Or did it feel like you had loads of air left? Either way, consistency is kind of king in this situation, because if you're taking in too much air, you're creating that pressure, which isn't great. And if you're not taking in enough air, you're not going to reach the end of your line. So it takes a lot of practice to get to a point where you feel like you can do it easily. So I'm going to sit for the next bit. You guys can stay lying down if you found that it has helped and it has stopped your muscles getting in the way. I tend to jiggle when I'm sitting to stop my stomach muscles engaging too intensely. That is my method of practicing. I don't jiggle while I perform, and I do not advise jiggling while you perform, because it takes a little something from your performance. Okay, this time, I want us to try and, so if you're sitting with me, make sure we've got that nice open space, but we're going to try to take that balloon breath as we count to 4. I'll count you in this time. We're going to hold for 4, and then we're going to try and breathe out for 12. Big jump? Yeah, well, you know what you're doing. Your body knows naturally how to breathe. So if you actually thought about how many times you breathe during a conversation, I think you'd be very surprised, but it's not that much. So we're going to find our nice comfortable posture, easy breath. Okay, so I'm going to breathe in. Then we're going to hold for 4. Whoops, I breathed out. That wasn't worth it. Should we try that again? So I'm going to breathe in. 2, 3, 4, and hold. 2, 3, 4, and out. Okay, who among you found that easy? I found it relatively easy. I think maybe my breath was inconsistent occasionally. I think sometimes I was pushing harder than at other points, and that's something that I will focus on and I will learn from. Our next activity, we're going to be back on our feet. Now is the time to have a quick drink of water. And it's one of those that we use to explore how much breath we actually need to do things. So we are going to start in our nice posture. So remembering that string going through us, belly button through our spine, tight zip trousers, whatever works for you. We're going to take that breath. We're going to count to 8 while we do it. No, to 5. And then we're going to walk around the space. And I only want you to come back to your spot if you run out of breath. So you're not allowed to breathe anywhere else in the room except your spot. And you're not allowed to come back to your spot unless you really can't breathe anymore, okay? So we're going to take that nice balloon breath. We're expanding everything. So. And then we're going to walk. And we're not holding our breath. And maybe let that breath drop back in. Okay, how did you feel like you did? How far did you get? Did you get further than you thought you were going to? Or did you maybe not go as far as you thought you were going to go? We're going to try that again. But this time, instead of having our silent breath, we're going to do it on a, what did we do last week? Last week we did, so this week we'll do, okay? So we're going to take that nice balloon breath, and then we're going to walk around the space on a sound, okay? So we're breathing in. So you naturally feel when you're about to run out. Going on an F was a little bit mean because when we do that sound, it's really tempting to push loads of air through it, okay? And you don't need a lot of air to do it, but the temptation is to go make the sound. It's not necessary, but it is a bit mean. So we're going to do it again on that sound and see if we can control how much air is coming out as we walk, okay? So give yourself a little shake. Make sure your tummy is not tight. Give me a little roll of the hips. Just making sure we're still open, we're still flexy, nothing's got tense, nothing's got uncomfortable. Okay, so we're going to take that deep breath. And then we're going to go. So did you catch me there at the beginning? I put in way too much air at the start and then I ran out. And that's what happens. You've got to meter how much you use. So what I also did was I didn't breathe into my belly. I was only breathing to about here. So I'm going to try that again. You don't have to if you don't want to, because you've already done it twice properly. But like, practice makes perfect. So finding our neutral posture, imagining that that water balloon is expanding. So I broke my own rule. I didn't come back to my spot. Okay, so now we're going to move on to a voiced sound. If you were here last week, you might know the answer to this question, but I'll ask it again. Which do you think needs more breath? A voiced sound like a v or a z, or an unvoiced sound, so a s or a f. Have a countdown music. So let's give it a go and find out if you're all right with whatever answer you came up with. So we're going to have that nice balloon breath. And again, every time we breathe in like this, we're thinking about our breathing. So I'm going to breathe in. And we're going to go for a z, I think. Z. Okay, so that's where I ran out. And that was a lot longer than I managed with my and I find zzz quite difficult because of that splashy S that I told you about last week. So control over your vocal folds, this thing that makes that voiced sound, is the hum. So when we're breathing, when we do a s, the first thing that interrupts the breath is our tongue. If we go v, the first thing that interrupts the breath is our vocal folds. So, oh, what's a good example? It doesn't matter. When you are doing a voice sound, those vocal folds come together. You don't need a lot of breath to make a lot of sound. So when we've got those vocal folds coming together and holding that pressure in and releasing it and bouncing back together, we let out way less air. The more air we push out, the harder it actually is for those to make contact. So I might bring in a straw next week to show you what it looks like. But when you sing like this, there's lots of air coming out and you run out of breath really quickly. Whereas if you sound like this and everything is very engaged in your vocal folds, everything is coming together. You're slamming your vocal folds together. They're coming together quite solidly. A nice big walls come together. And that causes even more pressure to be released. So little pressure, loads. Little bit of air coming out, loads of air coming out, little bit of air coming out, loads of air coming out, little bit of air coming out. Does that make sense? So being aware of these, like I was telling you earlier, gives you more control and more awareness and more ability to pick how long you need to breathe for. I'm just going to give us a time check. Got 10 minutes left with you guys. So we have looked at our posture, remembering that string, not tipping our head up or down, not letting it. I often find myself, if I look at a picture of myself taken by someone else, I'm often like that. Causes tension in your shoulders. We don't lock our knees. We're not rolling our hips all the way in or all the way back. We've got nice even balance on all the three major balance points in our feet. That's the ball of your foot behind your big toe, the one behind your little toe, and your heel. These all need to be nicely balanced for us to have a stable structure. Why do we need a stable structure? So that our whole body can work together harmoniously to support our voice. What important lessons have we learned about our breath today? Pushing so much air out is actually harmful and difficult, like causes more difficulty when you're singing. So being in control of how much breath you take in and how much breath you push out is really important to learn. We learned that our stomach muscles shift when we're breathing. And why is that important? Because this is your support. And if you push all of it out, then you're going to have that tension, like we said, like the bodybuilders. Our vocal folds and our false vocal folds will just slam together because they think you're doing really hard work, and then you get pain, and we don't like pain. What else have we learned? We've talked a lot about what I've been calling water balloon breathing. My voice teacher called it 3D breathing, and that makes a lot of sense too. So you're breathing forwards from here, sideways through your hips, and back out of your back hips. And we're breathing down. So that water balloon is filling up, filling up, filling up, filling up, and then we let it release. We're not pushing, we're not forcing anything. And then when we have pushed all of our air out, we've now practiced how to let it fall in. So doing that. Okay, so we can let our upper chest expand. We don't want it to be doing this when we're breathing, that sort of breathing. We don't want that. It can expand, but the place that you need to be focusing on breathing to is your belly, or even to your hips. That helps me. If I think I'm breathing, I get muscle shifting down here as well as everything else. So breathing. Some people like to talk about rooting their breathing. So focusing, imagining that their breathing is coming from a spot between their legs, or from their bottom, or their tailbone, or anything like that. So breathing to that space. There's lots of nice imaginary imagery rather to help us find our own way of getting that breath. But what you've done today is a lot of exercises that help you recognize what is working, what needs to work, and what needs to take a bit of a break. I hope you've enjoyed this session, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.